president is making good on another one of his campaign promises to put America first. Earlier this week, the president signed an executive order that gives federal agencies the power to review the H-1B temporary visa program. This program brings highly skilled foreign workers to the United States. Despite its backing by the tech industry, the commander-in-chief says it needs some changes.
Right now, H-1B visas are awarded in a totally random lottery, and that's wrong. Instead, they should be given to the most skilled and highest paid applicants, and they should never, ever be used to replace Americans. No one can compete with American workers when they are given a fair and level playing field, which has not happened for decades.
Joining us now to talk more about the H-1B visa program is Darren Heyman, an attorney at law for Heyman Law Group. What does all this mean for the people who currently participate in the H-1B visa program?
Thank you so much for having me both. So at this point, what we're dealing with is simply a review over the next 180 days to see how the H-1B is currently being executed, to see whether or not there are going to be any, or whether or not there are any violations of it, and to what degree they are really substantive and requires an overhauling of the program.
Darren, the H-1B visa, it's very limited. I think only 50,000 are given out a year. I personally came here on an H-1B visa, and I can tell you it was a very, very arduous and complicated process. You really had to prove that you were very well qualified for the job. Do you see a reduction in the number that the government is going to grant?
So I think this is a much ado about nothing. At the end of the day, it really isn't going to make that big a difference. I think they're going to come back in 6 months and say, you know what, yes, there are the occasional exploitations of the visa, but by and large, it is necessary. Right now, there are 85,000 H-1Bs being offered to non-Americans who are looking to temporarily work and live in the United States. 20,000 of those are for master's degrees plus. 65,000 are for those master's degree plus applicants who didn't get it, and the bachelor's degree applicants. Right now, foreign workers are an integral part of the American fabric, especially within the tech industry. So I really don't foresee that that number is going to decrease anytime soon.
Darren, if there was something about the program that you think should be fixed, what would that be?
Well, at this point, the biggest problem that I see with the H-1B program is the lottery-esque element to it, which is basically everyone is given the exact same level playing field. It doesn't matter what degree that you have. If it's a bachelor's degree, it doesn't matter if you went to the best school or not the best school. So I think there's going to be some sort of less leveling of the playing field, whereby only those who really have the highest qualifications, who are the top of their field, or at least higher than most, will actually obtain those visas. At this point, unfortunately, what we see is very highly qualified people who applied and just weren't able to get it simply because of literally the luck of the draw.
Now, Darren, one of the problems that this could have is particularly on the tech industry, because they rely very much on people coming in from India, for example, with H-1B visas to work in jobs that apparently Americans aren't able to do. How would this impact the tech industry?
Well, it's going to impact the tech industry because again, one has to remember this is only one of 22 different types of non-immigrant visas that the U.S. offers. So a lot of those employees that are going to be coming from India, there's something, for instance, called the L-1 visa, which allows an intercompany transfer. So if they worked for an Indian company or the Indian office of an American company in India for a year, then they'll be able to transfer that way. Overall, what it would do is it would decrease probably the quality of the workers, but I think there still are plenty of Americans out there who would be more than willing to take those jobs if given the opportunity.
But just to clarify, the executive order the president signed, this is really just to start a review of the process first, right?
That's exactly right. So basically, we're taking 180 days for the Department of Labor, for DHS, for all these different governmental organizations to have a look to see what is actually going on with the H-1B, whether or not there are abuses, whether or not it's working, and most importantly, whether or not it really is taking American jobs.
Well, on that point of taking American jobs, Darren, when I applied for that, the company that I worked for, they had to show that they advertised the position for an American, and failing to find an American that could do this job, they had to bring in a foreigner. So there is justification for doing that. Is that not a factor?
These days, it is less of one. So they have all of these H-1Bs that are being offered, and providing you fulfill the criteria, one of which is that the company will pay the prevailing wage for that non-American employee. If you have a graduate degree in the area in which you are applying for that job, that pretty much is really the only criterion.
All right, well, standards have slipped. Darren Heyman, thank you so much for joining us. Moving on, thank you, Darren. France.